guys, welcome to Mike's CDL Academy. We will begin the entry level driver training, which is required by the state and the FMCSA. So please pay attention. You will be taking notes and answering questions for each chapter. Okay. So welcome to the trucking industry. We'll start with simple CDL vocabulary. CMV stands for commercial motor vehicle. GVW is gross vehicle weight, which is the weight that the semi truck and trailer would weigh if you were to hop on a weight scale. GVWR is gross vehicle weight rating, which refers to the weight of the vehicle that's designed to carry by the manufacturer. Typically, it's 80,000 pounds. We have interstate versus intrastate. Interstate is when a CMV, commercial motor vehicle, goes between multiple states, such as Colorado to New York. Intrastate is when a CMV only travels in one state, for example, Denver to Greeley, Colorado. The reason we have to teach this is because there are laws and regulations that you must be at least 21 years of age with a CDL in order to leave the state that's issued on your CDL license with a CMV. For example, if you are 20 years old with your CDL issued from Colorado, you are not allowed to go to Cheyenne, Wyoming, for example. If law is broken, you may risk losing your CDL privilege. It is a regulated industry by the FMCSA and DOT. Although the FMCSA is part of the DOT, they are different. The FMCSA focuses on the trucking industry as a whole, while the DOT oversees various transportation sectors. Logbooks are forced by the FMCSA. A question here. Do local drivers need logbooks? You will need a completed logbook each day you drive within a bigger 100-mile radius. So if you're a driver that's staying local, you typically will not need the logbooks done every day, unless most likely when you're out of state, basically exceeding the 100-mile radius, you will start needing to use your logbooks. Your employer will be training you on how to use your logbook because there are different softwares that they use. So that is your employer's responsibility. Getting your CDL since February 2022, all new drivers must go through a state licensed school in order to legally obtain a CDL, which we are approved and certified through the FMCSA and the Department of Education. You have already passed your DOT physical exam, which is important to be passing every 2 years. Be in good health and be physically able to perform all duties as a driver. They also test for your corrective lenses, see if you need glasses to operate a CMV safely. And you guys have already obtained this in order for you to start the school. And this is renewed every 2 years. So, driver disqualifications, you guys will be considered professional drivers. What does this mean? This means that there are a lot more disqualifications than qualifications. The FMCSA and DOT are constantly on the watch for reckless and unprofessional drivers. This is why proper training and responsibility is very important because you could lose your license faster than you can obtain it. What are some examples? Any type of reckless driving behavior will get your license suspended or revoked. Suspended means temporarily. Revoked means that they have taken away your driving privilege. You have to go through certain amount of steps and certain steps to retain your CDL. Erratic lane changing and tailgating can get your license suspended. Knowingly leaving an accident scene while operating a CMV results in 1 year of disqualification or license revoked. An at-fault fatality will automatically get your license revoked. Speeding tickets or 2 serious traffic violations within a 3-year period will get your license suspended for 2 months. So I highly advise, if you do get these types of violations of traffic, to hire an attorney, and he or she could possibly reduce it to something less affecting in your license and your license record. Being under the influence of a controlled substance will get your license revoked, and refusing to take an alcohol or drug test at an accident scene will get your license revoked. Only 3 reasons why they should alcohol or drug test you at an accident scene. One is if somebody has to be hospitalized. Two is if the accident was so severe that there has to be vehicles towed out of the scene. And then 3 is if there's a fatality. If it's a bumper to bumper crash, they technically should not be alcohol or drug testing you. But regardless, we should not be worried about that because we are staying away from these things regardless as a CDL driver. What habits make a great driver? Number one is you care about the equipment that you use. Equipment costs money, and employers are cautious of their drivers taking care of their equipment. Two is that they're not pushed by their employer or carrier. You guys are always on your own time, obviously not speeding. Three is you're a cautious driver. Four is you're stress tolerant. There will be stressful moments. You just have to overcome them as a driver. Five, you're a business head because you have to be profitable as a driver. And at the same time, you have to be making your company profitable. So as long as you're doing the job and the work that you're assigned, there should be no problem. Please note that every single drug test is recorded and sent to the FMCSA clearinghouse and will impact your CDL career if test is positive for any narcotics in, of any kind, including marijuana. Do not drink alcohol within 12 hours before a drug test and be aware of random drug test issued. Um, there will be a required drug test pre-employment when you first begin working, and also be very careful of CBD gummies. We have heard that they include a percentage of THC, which will negatively impact your career if it tests positive. So stay away from those, in my advice. You will be obtaining your Class A CDL. Basically, it's the best commercial license you can obtain. You're able to drive any vehicle here, but you will be reduced to your endorsements. So you could always add, which I recommend adding tankers. The endorsement is always added at the DMV. It is a 25-question endorsement. You could also add doubles and triples. Hazmat, you could always add that in the future. I recommend experience. It does pay a lot much better, but you could always add that in the future with experience. Passengers will be a specific training that you must do, but regardless, you'll be able to grab a Class A, Class B, Class C vehicle. So, the semi truck hooked up to an empty trailer weighs around 35,000 pounds. The weight maximum for a semi truck fully loaded in the United States allowed is 80,000 pounds, so we should never be exceeding that limit. I see a lot of truckers have the habit of exceeding that limit as if it's nothing, but that is an illegal activity. You can exceed the limit if you have some sort of oversized weight permit or if your employer has that permit. A semi truck without a trailer weighs between 10 of 25,000 pounds depending on the size. So here is the weight stations and scales. What happens if you don't stop at an open weigh station? If you don't stop, you can potentially get stopped and potentially get fined or your license suspended down the road. So if it is open with a big green sign, hop in there. It will take around 5 minutes. You'll hop on the weight scale. Light will then turn green, allowing you to drive off. If you do work in the oil industry, make sure you always have your tarps covered on your trailers prior to hopping on the scale. And at that point, you'll have your CDL, insurances on the vehicle, DOT number in case they call you down and ask for these things. If they are closed on the interstate, you could continue driving as they don't exist and nothing will happen. That is the end of that chapter. Your trainer can now answer your questions if you do have any questions. We'll continue to chapter 2, control systems and dashboard.
Today we're going to give you an intro.
So I will be explaining what this gentleman is explaining. We can start off with our power windows or power mirrors and power heated mirrors. You could adjust that to your view on the mirrors. We'll start off with our instrument gauges. We have an oil pressure gauge. Every time you turn on a CMB, make sure it has at least 30 psi or above. Our voltmeter gauge, make sure that's in between 12 and 15, normal operating, not in the red. If you notice that you're driving and you start noticing that needle consistently go down, that could indicate that your alternator is failing. We have our water coolant temperature. Normal operating range is between 200 and 250. We will move over to our engine fan. Most newer CMBs have automatic engine fans, so they will turn on at a certain Fahrenheit on the coolant temperature, typically at 230, 240. If it is a older model, less modern engine, They will be manual. You'll have to click that button and keep an eye on your coolant temperature every once in a while. Let's move over to our tachometer on the left side. That is very important when you're learning how to shift and operate the CMB. On the right side, we have our speedometer. In the final test, if you are speeding, you will fail the test, obviously. But you can also fail if you're going too slow. So if it's a 40 miles an hour zone and you're going 20 with no traffic, the examiner is going to think that you don't feel safe operating the CMB and will fail you. So if there's no traffic going, go at least 5 miles an hour below the limit. If there's a lot of traffic going on, the examiner will understand why you're going slow and maintaining your distance. We have our primary and secondary air gauges. Basically, our CMBs most of the time have two air tanks. One is the primary, one is the secondary. There is two emergency systems. The first one that you'll be learning is your low air alarm buzzer at 55 psi or before. That will turn on an alarm, letting you know that there is low air in the system. The next one is a system that engineers created that if psi falls between 20 and 40 psi, there will be an emergency pop-out test on the yellow and red valve as you're driving, and the CMB will automatically brake for you in case of a too low of an air system. We also have our fuel gauge. Obviously, on diesel engines, we're only putting diesel on the fuel tank unless it is a gasoline-powered engine. We have our front and rear drive axle temperatures. Make sure that's never getting overheated. On a hot operating day, hauling heavy, you can get close to the red, which will be normal, but typical range is 200 Fahrenheit. We have our transmission temperature, same thing there. Do not let that get overheated. We will turn off the engine if it does start. Our air filter, a lot of people don't pay attention to this. A lot of the times, the reason turbos leak oil is because your air filters are getting too clogged up. Not enough oxygen is going through the intake system, which causes your turbos to leak oil. So that could kind of save you money as far as replacing turbos. Instead, try out switching your air filter, clean the turbos. If it does not continue leaking oil, that was the problem. If it does, then that simply was a problem with your turbos. We have our boost gauge, same thing with our turbos. Keep an eye on the normal operating PSI. If you start noticing that air doesn't build up as much anymore and a reduction of power, it could mean a boost leak or a turbo going out. We have our depth gauge. Very important to not let this completely empty because if it does, the engine will go on a D-rate mode. You'll have to take it to a mechanic and it will be expensive. So always make sure you have proper depth and enough depth. We have our oil temperature gauge. Same thing, make sure that's not getting overheated. Let's start talking about our switches. Obviously, every time you turn off a CMB or hop out of the vehicle, make sure that the key is in the off position to not drain the batteries. On the left side is your lights for the coupling and uncoupling of the trailer to help you see in the nighttime. On the right is your cluster adjustment of the light to be on a proper adjustment for your eyes. That way it doesn't bother you in the nighttime. The lights will look something like this for the rear cab. Let's talk about our regen button, very important on newer CMVs. The regeneration is the emission system where you have to be regenning it every once in a while, basically cleaning all the emissions, exhaust, getting all the system cleaned out. You will see this regen symbol on the cluster, yellow and amber. It will stay on if it's asking for a regen. You will have to pull over to a side or in a safe location. It could be a truck stop where you're not bothering anybody because it will take 30 minutes to an hour to fully regen. You will have to park the vehicle in neutral, push and hold that button for 3 seconds. The RPMs will start revving automatically and they will stay there. And it's basically cleaning all the emissions exhaust. Once it does finish, it will go back to normal idle and you could continue driving. If you're driving locally, it will be asking for it more frequently. If you're driving on highway, more of interstate, you won't have too much of issues with them because they automatically regen as you're driving in the highway. But as far as local driving, a lot of stopping and going, it will ask for regens more frequently and it must be done to not damage those engines. We have our hill assist button. If you're up a hill, you click that button. It will now allow you for you to let off of the brake and it holds you. Now you would just have to focus on the clutch or gas if it's automatic. We will now talk about our PTO, which is a hydraulic system for typically for oil field trailers to such as side dumps and end dumps to drop, for example, dirt or whatever you are hauling. In order to turn on the PTO, you have to clutch all the way down, click the PTO button, and then release the clutch in neutral. The system will now turn on. Then there will be a separate wiring switch that your employer will show you where you could click to rise or drop the trailer. Once you are done using the trailer and dumping whatever you have, then you could clutch all the way in, turn off the PTO, and release the clutch again to turn off the system. Traction control off, same thing as a normal vehicle if needed. We have our fifth wheel sliding automatic on newer CMVs. Instead of pulling a pin, you basically click that button and it allows you to release the fifth wheel and you could now adjust where you want the fifth wheel. It would look something like this. More weight towards the front will cause less skids in the front axle. More weight in the more moving it more to the rear gives you more space with the landing gear legs of the trailer and the tractor when turning. Typically, your employer will already have the adjustment where he or she wants it. Let's talk about our engine Jake brake. Our engine Jake brake only functions if we are in a gear, such as second, fifth, seventh, any gear. You have to be in a gear. Your foot has to not be touching the accelerator or the clutch. You will click the button in the middle and it will be pre-selected to a low, medium, or high level. Typically, I recommend always leaving it on the highest level. That way, the engine Jake brake works the best. You will click that button, it will turn on your Jake brake, allowing you and helping you to slow down the CMV. This is typically used in mountain downgrades or any sort of downgrade that does not have signs that does not allow Jake brakes in that area. Roads that do not allow that. We have our hazards on the left side. That's typically used a lot in trucking. We have our cruise control buttons. The cruise control will typically be set when you're warming up your vehicles in the mornings once you have let it idle for a couple minutes, but it is often used such as anywhere in parking. Let's say you go to a truck stop, you go into the gas station, you park the vehicle, set your RPMs up a little bit. That way the engine is getting properly oiled with the turbos and the cylinder heads because it is very bad for an engine to be at normal idle for the longevity of the engine's life. So I would recommend always setting your RPMs up. Let's now talk about our differential locks. The X in the middle will be locking both axles at the same time. The X in the front will only lock the front axle. The X in the rear will only lock the rear axle. You only want to turn the system on, in my opinion, when you're completely stopped. Click the X in the middle, for example. That will lock your diffs, and you only want to be using your diffs locked at slower and lower speeds. For example, let's say you're going up a hill that's a little bit muddy, a little bit, rainy, and you want the most traction to not slide down the hill. You lock it prior to going up. You now go up slowly. Once you finish the hill and you are on level ground, that's when you could unlock it and continue driving again. This also helps if you are stuck in a muddy situation. It could help you get out of a stuck situation, but the best thing you could do is avoid those routes if possible. Let's now talk about our independent trailer hand valve, which is as it's called, independent trailer hand valve. It is not for parking. It is basically to test how well and how strong and if your trailer brakes are working. So you use those at, let's say you're going to 20 miles an hour. You pull that independent valve without braking on the service brake, and you're just going to feel how strong your trailer brakes work and if they work at all. It is just for testing. It is not for parking. What will be used for parking will be your yellow trailer valve. Okay? So basically, when we're parking in the yard, when we're finishing maneuvering, when we're switching with another student, and you're done with the vehicle, we want to put a thumb in the red and only pop the yellow, because I see a lot of students have the habit of pulling the yellow, the red accidentally pops out, and it's just not the professional way to do it. Professional way to do it is to always have a thumb on the red so that it doesn't, and only pop the yellow out. When you want to continue driving, that's when you push your yellow knob, and we always push with our palm to have the best strength to push the button. The only times the red valve is out is if you're disconnecting a trailer, if you're done working for the day, or you're done with training, and if you do not have a trailer connected to the tractor is when you typically would pop that red one out. Right, we are done with the introduction to control systems and dashboard. If you have any questions, your trainer will now be able to answer those questions. We will now continue. We have our glad hands on the left. We have our service glad hand, which is for regular braking procedure. Our red emergency line is for that emergency pop-out system that we were talking about earlier. The green electrical cable is for the lights to function in the trailer. We already talked about our trailer and tractor valves. We can skip that part. Our air tanks are usually underneath the cab. It will look something like this. Typically, there'll be a string attached to this purge. It is a good habit to pull that string every once in a while, especially in the wintertime, to let out humidity, because humidity will eventually turn to ice in the wintertime. So it's a good habit to purge your air tanks every once in a while. We have to learn what our air governor cutout is. It is basically when the CMB sneezes, and that is between 120 and 40 psi. The cut in when it starts building air again is around 100 psi. Let's talk a little bit about our transmissions and how we are going to shift. Your trainer will explain more of this in depth, but I could simply explain it. These transmissions are unsynchronized. This means that you can only shift gears in between certain RPMs, such as the sweet spot. So this would be an example of the sweet spot, which is between 900 to 1500. Realistically, your sweet spot would be at 12 to 1300. That will be the sweet spot for our vehicles. So your trainer will now explain more of the concept of the double clutching, which basically we will let him or she explain that here in this course. That way he or she could pause the video and explain more in depth. We already talked about our Jake brakes. Just keep in mind that our brake pedal can be very sensitive, so we just have to get in the custom of just getting used to the brake. When we're going to a stop sign, don't stab the brakes, but instead press on them and continue pressing on it gently. That way the CMB doesn't jerk back and forth. Our steering control is the same as a normal vehicle, but our steering wheel is larger in diameter, and each CMB has different turning radiuses. Some turn sharper, some take longer to turn. You just have to get used to each CMB. Those are your primary controls. Your secondary controls will be all other electromechanical functions, such as your lights, wipers, and defrosters. These are components that play important roles in safety. The lights that you will learn for the pre-trip inspection. On the top, we have marker lights. On the side, nighttime lights, and the very bottom, those are also called marker lights. These clear lights will be your headlights. On the headlights, we have low beam and high beams. We also have our left signals and our right signal, and our emergency lights. On the very back of a trailer, the top red lights are called also marker lights. The top, the bottom four lights will be in the nighttime will be tail lights. We also have left signal, right signal, emergencies, and brake lights. Windshield and wiper climate controls should always function and adjusted to the climate. City horns are part of the steering wheel and just requires a push of the center. Those are not to be used in an emergency, such as a possible collision, only for regular traffic communication, such as if a driver does not see that there's a green light, you could beep at him or her. Air horns are most likely handle cords and are not to be used regularly, only for emergency situations like a preventable collision. Those will be louder. Regular radios should be used at a safe decibel sound level. CB radios are used for communication within the workforce and should be adjusted properly. These were the instrument lights, cluster, and the rear cab lights that we were mentioning earlier. Let's talk a little bit about our lights, cluster indicators. We have our left signal, right signal, high beams, low air alarm lights, our parking light. We have our ABS light on the tractor and our ABS light on the trailer. If it turns on and off, that means it's working properly. If it turns on and stays on, it is not working properly. Our regen button, very important, we were talking about earlier. Regen button with the temperature gauge means that there's something getting ridiculously hot on the exhaust and we have to turn off and check out the exhaust. Seatbelt off light, our red stop engine light, that is more of a serious problem that must be, the engine must be turned off. Check engine light without the wrench is less of a serious problem. It could be a sensor of some sort and you could continue driving, but it's recommended to be fixed as soon as you can. Check engine light with the wrench is more of a serious problem and will lead eventually to a red stop engine. This is our low coolant light, engine fan light. We have our transmission problem light, locked differential light, hill assist light, traction off or skidding light, low voltage problem with the battery light, engine reset light, PTO light. We have our, if we're a towing company or towing hitch, this this symbol will be your lane assist. Basically, if you're accidentally exiting the lanes or the highways, either your seat will vibrate or some sort of warning will appear. We will now continue. We must have at least 3 emergency equipment at all times. We must have a 10 BC rated fire extinguisher. We must also have our 3 emergency triangles at all times. And we must have our spare fuse box at all times. Triangles must be placed within 15 minutes of a highway. We will let our our trainer explain more in depth of how the triangles will work. He or she could pause the video.
Whenever
Here is the end of the chapter. If you have any other questions, you could ask your trainer now. Pre-trip, we will talk about our pre-trip inspection. You will have access to this course. Your trainer will give you access to this. This will be your everyday study that you could use as a daily study. It is recommended to download Google Slides, and that way you can have easier access to this course instead of looking through our emails for this specific uh, course. So as long as you download Google Slides, it will be easier. We will start with our acronym to learn and use. Rubber parts such as tires or hoses, you will say no frays, cuts, or bumps on the test. Parts made of metal, plastic, or something hard like a windshield, which is 90% of what you speak in the inspection. You will say not cracked, damaged, or loose. Lenses, lights, and reflectors. You will mention the 3 colors, either color clear, color amber, or color red. For everything, we will say secured. Electric lines, we're going to say no frays, no cuts, or no corrosion. Notice rubber and electrical lines is very similar. The only word that changes is bumps and corrosion. Frays and no cuts is repeated. The trainer will also provide you with our YouTube video that we made of our inspections. We will start off with our seatbelt secured, not crack damage or loose, locks and unlocks. Our ABS light, we will turn the key on. ABS light turns on and off, working good. Now we will safe start. Please make sure that you clutch all the way down. Check if you're in neutral and parked every time you turn on the CMB or you will fail the test. So we will safe start it. Once the CMB is on, we will mention if the CMB that you trained with has def, you will mention that the def light is on working. If it doesn't, you could skip this part. First test is our air governor cutout between 120 and 140 psi. We will rise and hold the RPM to 1000 and wait until it sneezes. Once it sneezes, you will hear a sneeze, then you will say working good. Now, the most important thing on the pre-trip begins, the MLP and preparing for the MLP. Once it sneezes, we have to turn off the engine. We have to turn the key back on so that the cluster works. We have to put the transmission in any gear, and we have to push both of our valves in, the red and the yellow. Very important, or else you will fail if you skip any of these parts. If you forget to turn on the key, for example, or push your valves in, you can remind and tell the examiner to please restart, or else you will fail the test if you don't tell he or she. Now you will get your own timer out. You will have your timer out, and we will say my service brake cannot lose 4 psi 1 minute. You will press and hold the brake pedal steady, and you will start the timer. Once the time of the 1 minute has passed, then you could release the brake. If you release the brake early at 59 seconds, for example, you will fail the test. So wait exactly 1 minute. The next is our low PSI alarm at 55 or before. We're going to fan the brakes. We're going to wait to hear the buzzer and see the alarm. Once you see that, you're going to say working good. Now it's my emergency pop-out test between 20 and 40 PSI. Pump the brakes until they both pop out. If only one pops out, you have to continue braking until both of them do. You cannot also touch those valves. Do not touch those valves until those pop automatically. Now, we must safe start again since we lost all the air. Make sure you're in neutral, clutch all the way down, and we have to build air one more time until it sneezes. In that meantime, you can tell the examiner that my tug test is next, rise the RPMs, wait until it sneezes. Now, we will let you guys from here on study on your own. Here at the yard, we will work with you one-on-one, but from here on, you guys are responsible of studying the pre-trip. We just wanted and needed to explain the only thing that could fail you for the pre-trip. The rest of the test, if you forget anything from here on, it is not that big of a deal. Obviously, we want to practice it so much that we perfect it, but it's not going to fail you in the test. As long as you remember the rest of it, you will be fine. So always remember to do the MLP correctly. Okay, guys, we are continuing the course. Special rigs, proper cargo weight and balance is crucial for safety and proper securement of cargo. Your responsibility as a professional driver will be to verify the type of cargo you're about to haul and make sure load dock workers are properly loading your cargo. This means you might have to physically be present during the loading process and supervise the cargo being loaded. Knowing the cargo type you're hauling is crucial for safety since there are many different types of trailers such as reefer trailers, sandbox trailers, which are high center of gravity, side dumps, bellies, etc. Oversized rigs will require a permit. We have a high center of gravity cargo that must be driven more carefully. These cargoes require slower turns and cornering since they are easier to tilt. Always study and research any new cargo you're hauling since many trailers are considered high center of gravity. So a question here, how should vehicles with high center of gravity be loaded and to improve handling? The answer is low in the trailer and towards the front of the trailer. Because if weight is towards the back, the trailer will fishtail in the highway and cause very serious problems. There is no federal height requirement for CMBs, thus States make their own height restrictions. Most height limits range from 13 feet to 6 to 14 feet. Always understand the clearance and the height of your trailer to not be hitting under bridges. That's the end of this chapter. If you have any questions, you can now ask the trainer. Chapter 4, Basic Control. There are 4 basic controls that factor in when driving a commercial vehicle. Number 1 is steering. Number 2 is accelerating. Number 3 is braking. And 4 is gear and revolution control. Steering is obviously controlled by your steering wheel. The only difference on a CMB is that the steering wheel is larger in diameter, and every CMB has different turning radiuses, some allowing the CMB to turn sharper, other CMBs take longer and don't turn as well. Accelerating, same thing as a normal vehicle, it's controlled by the accelerator. Make sure you have proper control of your accelerator and have proper timing with your accelerating. Braking, same thing with braking. Make sure you have sensitivity and control your sensitivity with your foot pedal. Gear and revolution control, as the examiner already explained, the shifting aspect of the double clutching, it's understanding that every gear has to be shifted at the sweet spot because these transmissions are unsynchronized. Letting the engine warm up, especially during cold weather. You should always let your engine warm up properly within 5 to 15 minutes before departure. During the winter and cold weather, I would personally let my truck warm up for 20 minutes with the RPM set up. That way it's getting properly warmed up. Shutting down, putting your transmission in neutral and pulling your parking yellow knob. Making sure that you're parked in a safe zone, usually in your employer's yard. Turn off batteries or anything that could drain your batteries, such as an electric input. How long does it take a semi-truck to fully stop at 65 miles an hour? We will watch this video. A semi-truck can weigh more than 20 times the weight of a typical car. As we can see on this example, the semi-truck needed more than a football field and a half to fully stop compared to a car. So if this CMB was tailgating this car, you would have taken this car all the way over here in an emergency stop. So it's very important, and you avoid 90% of accidents if you just simply maintain your following distance. If you have never driven manual, please understand that the clutch must be released slowly and engaging slowly. You cannot just drop the clutch because you will be damaging the drive lines on CMBs, and that's the reason why you have to let off the clutch slowly when you are in gear. Straight line backing basics.
Is now going to invite you out onto the yard to do the reversing skills part of your test. A box next to the box you're actually going into, and then cut back at the last minute. This will allow the trailer, both flat mirrors, watching your trailer wheels and the space between the trailer wheels and the cones, making sure that the trailer is evenly and equally positioned between the cones. If you can see your trailer wheels on both sides in your flat mirror, that's a good indicator that the tractor and trailer are straight to each other. Once you've pulled through the box and you're in your starting position, the examiner will give you the go-ahead to start your maneuver. Keep the wheel pointed straight ahead and check both mirrors as you gently reverse backwards. Watching both mirrors, you'll notice eventually that one trailer wheel will eventually disappear. When this happens, pause, watch that mirror, and then steer away from that side where the trailer wheel has disappeared. You do not need to turn the wheel more than half a turn. Even a quarter turn may be all that is needed.
Simply what this video talks about and explains is that turning the wheel too much will basically make you work double. So it's just turning very little. And counter steering, if you turn the wheel left, the trailer will go right. If you turn the wheel right, the trailer will go left, the opposite way. If I turn the wheel left 2 seconds, I have to turn the wheel right for 2 seconds, then straighten out when I see the evenness of both sides of the trailer. So it's very important to counter steer. You will have plenty of time in our yard to practice the maneuvers. Your flat mirrors and your convex mirrors should be always adjusted to your view, making sure that they are adjusted to your preference. We will now talk about turning. We will start off explaining what off-tracking means. Off-tracking is the different route that your trailer tires take compared to your front steer tires. So as you notice, the longer the trailer, the longer the off-tracking. The shorter the trailer, the easier it is to maneuver and to turn. If you do something like this in the test, you will automatically fail, as you could see on the sheet of paper that your trainer gave you for the rules of the road. This image is the correct way to be turning on a CMV, which is going straight and turning late. This might mean that you will be going over these yellow solid lines, as you could see, which will not fail you in the test. What will fail you is you hitting a curb with the trailer tires. It will look something like this when you turn. Basically, you have to cut off that space immediately as soon as you can. That way no car gets in between here and damages your trailer and hits your trailer. This white solid line is your guidance, and you cut that space off immediately. This is an example of an improper way to turn, which is an old school way of truckers that turn. Basically, opening wide is very, very dangerous because you can basically, if this is an oncoming lane, you can hit someone head-on collision. If this is a 2-lane going up, you will basically hit someone next to you. And if there's someone behind you getting into your space, thinking that you mistakenly use your turn signal, they could get into your space, hit your trailer, and it will be your fault. A lot of the times, cars do this on purpose so that their insurance claims can, so that they could have insurance claims on for the damage. Sometimes there will be cars in your way. This is where you have to be paying attention in the training and understanding the amount of distance that we need when we turn. So if you know that in this scenario in the test, that your trailer and truck will be able to turn, then you would take that turn. If you understand your trailer at that point and you understand that you will hit that car or you will hit a curb, then it's better to wait, even if it's a green light, wait for that car to pass, then you're able to go straight, turn late into the right lane. What you can also do is give yourself room from this curb, but not enough to where you let cars go into your space and ruins the turn. So don't give out too much room. But always make sure that your tractor and trailer is always straight before you turn. We have the habits in our regular cars to be slanting the vehicle, so do not ever do that on a CMB. Always keep it nice and straight before you turn. When we're talking about two multi-left lane turns, we're always on the outside lane and we're always going straight and turning late, because if we turn early, we will hit someone with our trailer in this area right here. This is the improper way of doing it, which is being on the inside lane, on the left lane. Because you will have to go straight enough to not hit this curb, you will either hit cars, you will either hit curbs, you will be causing very serious problems. So always stay on that outside lane for a multi-left lane turn. When we're talking about a 1-lane left turn, on the test, they want you to go straight, turn late, stay in the middle a little bit. That way you clear the curb with the trailer and you see on your convex mirror that you cleared it. But we first want to hop on that left fast lane, get some speed, get some gears, then eventually right signal on, turn over to the slow lane whenever you can. When we're talking about swerves, We're always watching our convex mirror in the direction that we're swerving. If we're swerving left, watch that left convex so that we're not causing issues such as this to where a car could hit your trailer. So the route should look, the way you should be driving should look something like this, where those blue dotted lines are, staying out throughout the whole swerve. This, we will put examples of what you could come across of in the test. This is a intersection turn. We always want to downshift. At that point, you will understand how to downshift. So we're downshifting, taking our time at intersections and lights compared to stop signs. At lights, we have to downshift more. So we have to downshift, open up a little bit. We're now watching our road of who's coming this way to the right. Why? Because we have to make sure that no one's in this slow lane where this vehicle is. Because with a big trailer such as a 53-foot trailer, those big Walmart trucks, we basically have to jump over to that slow lane and skip that merge lane where we catch speed as in a regular car. So there can't be no car coming such as this one, because if we do, we will T-bone and crash into them. So we bounce over once we see that there's no cars, and we basically stay in this lane. With the trailers that we test with, we do test with 33-foot trailers. So most of the time you're able to get on that merge lane and then hop over to that slow lane, I'm sorry. So this would be an example of a big 53-foot trailer of how you would drive. Basically, that's allowing you to avoid that curb. When it comes to a turn like this, you basically would never want to open wide because you would hit someone on your left side. So we basically go straight, and please pay attention here. We turn right, and we stay in that middle lane for a quick second or two until we see that we cleared it on the right convex, the curb. Then we slowly start merging into that slow lane on the right side. We don't want to hop in right away to that right lane. We want to give ourselves a little bit of time, stay nice and open for a second or two. Those were the turning basics. We will now talk about roundabouts and what roundabout aprons are. Roundabout aprons are essentially pinkish in color. You will find that they look something like this. These are specifically designed for our trailer tires to be running over them. There are also some in city turns such as this one. Now, when they are cement color, like a gray color, those are not meant to be hit, I'm sorry. So we must be very careful with that on the test. In the test, in my opinion, I would pretend that these aprons do not exist and always stay nice and out to not fail the test. So this is how we will be using roundabouts. So in the test, the examiner could tell you, please take the first exit or take the second or take the third, right? So the first exit is the closest one, second is the middle, third is the most farthest one. So if the examiner tells you take the first exit, we are on the right lane, we are downshifting because we have three options. If there's too many cars next to you, what you could do is stop at the yield, wait for those cars to pass you. If there's a couple cars behind you and they're catching speed, you want to slow down and give them time to overpass you. That way you are comfortable when you are turning and there is no one next to you. You could also, if there's cars way behind you, you could speed up and beat them for the turn. Because we have to open up a little bit so that our trailer tires does not hit the curb right here. That's part of the reason why we have to be washing our mirrors, making sure that there's no one next to us. That would be an example of a first exit turn. When it comes to second or third exit turns, we will be on the left lane on time. We would downshift. We would essentially do those three things that I told you. Either stop at the yield, slow down for people, or speed up. We obviously have to yield for people in the roundabout. This is an example of an apron, utilizing an apron. But if this wasn't an apron and you hit the curb with the trailer, this was a regular cement color, you would fail the test. So right here, you would have to be nice and opened. This means you would be passing these dotted white lines, which will not fail you. Then you would finish off on the left lane, and over here on the left lane if he tells you take the third exit. School zones. Laws must be respected. Never speed or drive careless in school zones. Always when those lights are on, make sure you are going the proper school speed limit. This is the end of this chapter. You can ask your trainer now any questions that you may have. Chapter 6, Backing and Docking. What are backing dangers? Although you may encounter many different scenarios in your trucking career, you should always be prepared for these possible situations. 3 key elements for safety backing is number 1, visibility. Number 2 is always avoid blindside backing if possible. And 3, turn off radio and lower windows, always. Backing dangers include objects such as other equipment, sidewalks, building structures, potholes, tall clearance for your trailer, and people are all things you should be looking out for. Proper alignment for docks are very important in order for warehouse employees to be able to unload and load you safely and properly. There will be dock lights that will be either green, telling you that they are ready and open to park, or they will not be on at all. Typically, that means that they're ready to be parked at. Now, when they turn red, that means that you cannot leave the dock until they are finished loading. Some warehouses will have working lights, others will not. Make sure you get off and make sure they are ready in case. And before we go to that loading dock, we obviously want to make sure that the tailgate is opened, and we want to make sure that the pins are locked. That way the door doesn't come flapping back around and basically you damage the door or damage the building. These are made of rubber, that way you're not damaging the building, taking your time and reversing until the end of the trailer hits the rubber. We will now talk about the final test 2025 maneuvers and on. This is the updated maneuvers skill test. So the boundary will be 100 feet long. It will be 12 feet wide. There will be 2 3-foot boxes on each end. On the left side, there will be dotted white lines. This is a space where you could go in and out of for the third and last maneuver. These solid white lines cannot be encroached. An encroachment means that if you're exiting by accident with your tractor or trailer tires or anything in between, basically besides the mirrors, you will get 2 points deducted each time. So it is 9 points to fail the whole maneuver test. It is 8 points to barely pass. I will be explaining each maneuver and the point system. The first maneuver is a 1 motion stop. Yes, that means a 1 motion stop, which means that you can't stop here and then creep like this. It has to be 1 motion stop to where the license plate or the bumper stops in 1 motion in this 3-foot box. You then park it, you sound the city horn, and if you do this correctly, you do not get 5 points deducted. If you do this incorrectly, you will get 5 points basically added, which adding points is bad for the maneuver skills test. So if you didn't time it right, you stopped here, that will be 5 points. If you went too far, that will be another 5 points. If you stopped then creeped, even if you ended up properly, that will be 5 points. The next maneuver is now the examiner will tell you to go straight, and you'll begin the straight line maneuver, which is the second maneuver. In this specific maneuver, you have to straight line all the way back. In case you get crooked, you get 1 free pull-up and 1 get out and look. Typically, we don't use the get out and look for this maneuver. Typically, the only thing that we would need in case will be a 1 pull-up in case you do get crooked. If you're exiting the white solid lines, there will be 2 points each time. That counts as an encroachment. And you want to completely exit the cones. If you don't exit all the cones and you stop right here, for example, you will get 5 points added, and that will be not good, right? So we go all the way back, we park right here, and we sound the city horn again. Now the third maneuver begins. It is hard to tell, but over here where this arrow is, there is a white line. From this cone to this line, it is 4 feet in distance. For the third maneuver, you have to show your skills of snaking out the tractor and trailer. And on the right passenger tires, you have to pass through this space of the 4 feet. Basically passing the cones through that space. If you were two out, such as this tractor trailer, you would get 5 points added, right? So you basically want to pass through that cone. You want to stop nice and straight. Make sure your tractor and trailer is aligned, and you also want to be aligned with the boundary itself. So you don't want to be you want to be parallel, okay? You park it. You sound the city horn. You have now completed that maneuver. Now it's the very last maneuver, which is going back into the boundary. On this one, you have 2 free pull-ups, which you could do a pull-up out here. There will be a boundary that you can't go too far past if needed. The trick to this one is to get this side of the trailer as close to this cone as possible, because this is considered a blindside bag. So you want to get as close to this cone as possible. If you do need another pull-up, you could do basically your pull-ups inside the boundary, but you have until this very last line, or else if you pass it, that's 2 points added basically. Then we basically have to stop the end of the trailer this time into this 3-foot box. That's the whole point of that maneuver. If you go too far, that will be 2 points. If you stop too early, for example, like right about here, and you park it, you get out and look, 3 points of contact, close the door or else you'll fail. Then you walk around, you notice that you're like, dang it, I need more space back. You would go back in, back up again, stop again, park it, get back out because you have 2 free get outs. And then you double check, walk around, make sure you're not encroaching. Even if your trailer was in the box, but your tractor is out of the white lines, you will fail the test if you sound the city horn. So basically, you cannot be exiting the white lines and you have to be in the box. The only thing that could be encroaching while you're in the box is your mirrors. That will be the end of that maneuvers. Skills test. Parking lots and truck stops. Always make sure you use truck enters and exits, since there are specific entries for trucks and regular car traffic in truck stops. Always drive slowly and be careful of hitting diesel pumps and structures. That's the end of that chapter. You can now ask your trainer any questions that you may have. Chapter 7, Coupling and Uncoupling. There are 2 key components when coupling: the fifth wheel and the trailer kingpin, on the left and on the right. We have our release handle on the left side, which is number 1. Number 2 is the locking jaw. There are handle tools that make it easier to pull that release handle. We have our trailer landing gear. Basically, every time we want to park our trailer, we want to make sure that it is on level ground, making sure it's gonna be able to support the weight of the trailer. We're gonna be explaining how our manual release fifth wheel works, basically the uncoupling. So first thing we want to do is start lowering our land. Well, first thing we want to do, even before that, is we want to make sure we find a spot where we want to park the trailer and leave it there, right? So once we have found that spot, we pull that red knob out and the yellow. We park the tractor and the trailer. We get that red knob out. We get off 3 points of contact. We go over where this gentleman is and we start lowering the landing gear. Keep in mind, on the landing gear, there is a low level and a high level. That way, it speeds up the process when bringing the landing gear down. So once you bring the landing gear down and it's flush with the floor and it touches the floor, we basically want to start disconnecting our glad hands and our electrical cable. So we go by pulling up. Same thing on the other. and then we disconnect the electrical cable from the wings of the cable, not from the cord itself. Then we store that on the dummy hands. Basically, it would be the same connections, but stored on the dummy hands in the tractor. That way it's not just hanging and basically gets torn up and damaged. Now, what we could do is pull our release handle. Basically, for the fifth wheel release handles, it's basically two ways that they could work. One is you're pulling and then you're going up and releasing. The other one is that you're pulling and you're going left, then releasing, and it stays unlocked. This is where the handle tool that I explained earlier will come in handy. And you could just use that handle tool because sometimes it's hard to reach your hand in there and pull. So you're just going to pull, go up in this example. Now you're able to safely drive off and disconnect the tractor from the trailer. Just like that. You're able to keep driving off and just leave the trailer there. Now, when we want to reconnect our tractor trailer, we want to understand and the importance of the height of the trailer. So notice the fifth wheel is slanted and the height of the fifth of the trailer basically hits the beginning of that fifth wheel. That's basically where we want the trailer height to be, because if it's too low, it's going to be hitting the skid plate or it's going to be hitting the chassis and you're going to be damaging something. If it's too high, then it will leave a daylight between, and you basically want it to be right where it's at right there. You obviously want to be even also. Your tires has to be nice and straight on both sides, as even as possible. Once you're backing up, you want to take your time. Then you're looking and hearing out for the locking jaw to click.
Up under is going to complete the trailer. This trailer has dual and back
Taking
up
your time.
real gentle.
Once you hear that click, it's very important to put it in first gear and release your, well, at that point your yellow knob will be released, pushed in, and you're going to drive off forward with only the clutch, just to test that it actually stayed locked and it doesn't keep driving forward.
Until we hear
twice.
The lock and jaw lock, we're going to put our truck in gear, forward gear, and we're going to tug on the trailer a couple of times to make sure that we're locked in.
That's a safe procedure, because if you didn't do that and you connect your lines, you lift your landing gear and you start driving off, basically what could happen is that it didn't stay locked and it could fall, the trailer could completely fall to the ground. Okay, so that's why we want to do that. We then get off 3 points of contact. We could start by lifting up the landing gear or connecting your glad hands, either or. Typically your emergency line will be on the right side and your service blue line will be on the left side. You basically want to kiss the seals and then go down. I recommend using gloves and 2 hands. So you're kissing the seals and then you're going down, just like that. You're going to do the same thing on the emergency line, just as so. Then you're going to grab your green electrical cable and basically connect your line, making sure it's nice and straight. And then your safety latch goes over the safety latch right there. So once you do that, then you could go back in the semi and push in your red knob in. That way, air could start supplying into the trailer airbags. At that point, your semi is still on. And then you could basically turn on your lights, make sure your airbags go up, make sure your tires are good, and lift your landing gear all the way up. Don't forget to do that, and store the handle in the lock position. That way it's not hanging and basically damaging. So that's basically how the coupling and uncoupling works. there is a thing called an automatic release handle, which is basically instead of you manually pulling that release handle, it would be a push of a button on newer CMBs, such as this. You push and hold up. I'm sorry, he's clicking the airbag. It will be
your handle, the tractor from the trailer will be cranking the landing gear all the way down to the ground. Hold it down for 3 release.
right here.
Hold it down for 3 seconds.
Push the button,
You can hear it release.
and your release handle pulls automatically instead of you pulling it.
Release your brakes. Put it in gear and pull ahead.
Right. Just as so. Okay, so that would be the difference between an automatic release handle and a manual release handle. We'll continue the course. That was the end of the chapter. If you have any questions about coupling, uncoupling, please ask your trainer now. Chapter 8, Visual Search. Visual search on a commercial vehicle is very critical and an important skill every driver must learn. One of the most important things a driver must understand is blind spots, such as these. There are 4 main blind spots on a tractor trailer, 1 in the front, 2 in the rear, in the sides of the vehicle, and then on the very back of a trailer. So the side ones, what helps with seeing those is making sure your convex mirror, which is the small mirrors on the bottom, are properly adjusted. That way you see who's next to you. What helps with the front and rear is basically paying attention of who is in front of you and who is behind you throughout your whole drive. Make sure those are adjusted properly. You must watch a quick following distance video.
Safe following distance is a constant challenge for commercial drivers. Passenger vehicles can often make erratic lane changes and exhibit other questionable driving behaviors. Heavy traffic and the kinds of other vehicles around you can also impact the amount of space you leave in front of you. In addition to providing enough stopping time, proper following distance allows for more time for you to make better decisions and to drive more defensively. The length of proper following distance depends on a variety of factors, but there are some key points that everyone should keep in mind. According to the FMCSA, if you are driving below 40 miles per hour, you should leave at least 1 second for every 10 feet of vehicle length. For a typical tractor trailer, this results in 4 seconds between you and the leading vehicle. For speeds over 40 miles per hour, you should leave 1 additional second per 10 miles per hour. In most road and traffic conditions, you should be leaving about 7 to 10 seconds of space between your truck and the vehicle in front of you. A good rule of thumb is to double that amount when driving in adverse conditions. Since you're driving a vehicle that has a longer stopping distance, it's critical to keep a safe distance between you and the vehicle in front of you. That distance gives you enough time to stop if you have to brake suddenly or react quickly to changing traffic conditions.
Alright guys, so basically following distance is very important as they are explaining in this video. Basically, in order to understand how the second following distance works, is you will have to count the set amount of seconds it takes you to pass a specific obstacle that the front vehicle has passed. So for example, if we look at this right interstate sign, it looks like a 5 right here, this 5 sign right here. If this was a clear highway and we were driving off at a good speed, for example, if this white car was in front of us, once that white car passes that same sign is when you start your second counting. So once he passes that sign, you'll be 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004. Let's say it takes you 5 seconds for you to pass that same sign with your CMB, you would have a following distance of 5 seconds. The FMCSA recommends having 6 to 7 seconds at all times, just in general to keep a safe distance. This will be an example of improper following distance.
Because it just pulls on my belt. I'll
things like this can happen if we do not maintain our following distance. We will now talk about hydroplaning and black ice. Hydroplaning is a type of skid that is caused by rain. Be careful when rain first begins because asphalt and oils from tires are most dangerous when it first begins contact with the roads. When it comes to curves, when it's raining or snowing, we definitely do not want to be braking in a curve when it's raining or snowing. So if we see a curve along our road far ahead, we want to be braking while we're straight and aligned. Because if we're braking in a curve, situations like this can happen. Now, this could be a cause of many things. It could also be a cause of bad tire treads. It could be disadjustment of our brakes to where when the driver brakes, the steering jerks, and that could cause stuff like this. But it was mainly caused by going too fast and braking during this curve while raining. Over here we have black ice, which is very hard to see. It can be very dangerous, especially with bridges. Make sure you slow down because of those small bumps that can create dangerous situations. The main issue is speed and can be avoided by simply slowing down. Most of the time, you guys will be getting paid per hour, so there's no reason for you to be speeding or going too fast for road conditions because stuff like this can happen and we want to be careful. Especially when carrying tanker vehicles such as this because of the liquid that basically jumps you back and forth and can be very, very dangerous. Jake brakes. Your trainer will now explain how trailer jake brakes work. Basically, what we recommend is to not use your jake brakes when it's snowing and raining if you're not aligned straight. There's nothing wrong with using it, but you have to be aligned nice and straight. Scanning entire site areas is very important. For example, in a city, we are not only looking at the first intersection light coming up, we're looking at the second light, the third light, the fourth light possibly. So we're always looking far, far ahead. It's part of the reason why height of CMVs are taller, so that we can see far distances. That's the end of that chapter. If you have any questions, ask your trainer. Chapter 9, Communication. It is very important to be using your turn signals on time and every single time before you give plenty of time before you act on a maneuver. Brake lights are essential for safety on the road. Basically, always do your CMB proper pre-trip inspections every time you drive off to ensure that we're not causing accidents by not having our lights working. Hazard lights can be used for many things, such as emergency stops or slowing down. They should always be used during stationary parking on the side of a busy street or a highway. Physical hand gestures is a quick way to let people know of who, if you're giving them a chance to drive off, for example, in a four-way stop, and always be on a lookout for them giving you physical hand gestures. Communication from other drivers, excuses for not using your turn signals. Not enough time, either you're lazy, either you forget to turn off your lights, or you think that there's too many lane changes, or you think that it's not important, or because others don't, but these should not be your excuses for not using turn signals. That's the end of this chapter. Make sure you could ask your trainer any questions you may have. Chapter 10, Distracted Driving. How often people are distracted. This was a video of a highway interstate close to Florida to where they found that 103 people were talking on the phone within 1 hour. Within that same hour, 14 people were texting, 8 people were eating food, and 4 were other distractions. So always understand that people will always be distracted while driving, and we need to be aware of these things. Recognizing driving distractions are drivers that fail to maintain consistent speed is usually a sign of distraction. Drivers that hit brakes suddenly and frequently. Drivers who you could see physically using their phones or eating. And at night, there is more chances of fatigued drivers to become a hazard. Your driving responsibilities. If you become fatigued or tired, it is your responsibility to take action and park somewhere safely to rest. Do not rely on coffee, energy drinks, or anything besides sleeping when driving a commercial vehicle. It is your responsibility to recognize when you become fatigued and need rest. This is why logbooks are required to not exceed work hours. Get at least 6 to 8 hours of sleep before every work day. That's the end of this chapter. Make sure you have asked your trainer any questions you may have. Chapter 11, Speed Management. Speed management is very important. If we are speeding in the test, that's an automatic fail. But in the real world, it is still as important because tickets can be expensive. You will have to pay a fine, your insurance will go up, you could lose your license, and your CDL could be suspended for 60 days or longer. So please avoid speeding on your personal vehicles and on CMV vehicles. Heavy traffic. In situations like heavy traffic, you will need to slow down much more than regular traffic in order to maintain proper distance. Never tailgate, especially during heavy traffic, due to constant stopping and lane switching. Road design safety. This is a very important road sign that all truckers must understand. This is an example of a 16% downgrade. That way we have some sort of percentage that we could compare to if we see some sort of similar sign, but with a different percentage in the real world. So a 16% downgrade will look something like this, to where we would have to have already prepared and downshifted on time. That way we can turn on our Jake brakes before the downgrade and be prepared, because if we have 80,000 pounds, we could have different scenarios to where it could be raining, it could be snowing. And if you find yourself in a situation where you didn't know what that sign meant, you could end up in a very scary situation coming down this downgrade. For example, this is a serious downgrade. Now, if you see an 8% downgrade, that is still very dangerous. You want to basically, a typical mountain, for example, the Colorado mountains, I believe they are 8%. So it's just being very careful and downshifting, not shifting once you're in the downgrade, using your Jake brakes, braking and releasing your brakes. That way you give it time to cool off and you're not causing brake fade. Speed management. We are done with this chapter. Make sure you ask any questions to your trainer that you may have. Chapter 12, Night Operation. Night operation at night you may encounter this can be overcoming fatigue and watching out for other sleepy drivers. It can also be overcoming bad visibility in times of rain and bad weather. This is why it's very important and understand that these scenarios can happen, and it is your responsibility to never operate a CMV with faulty lights or turn signals, especially at night. Although most of the time there will be less traffic at night, you still need to drive cautiously at all times. Be aware of drivers who forget to turn off their headlights or turn signals. Maintain proper falling distance and be aware of highway patrols that are sometimes on night watch. Nighttime inspections, I would always be prepared with a flashlight and recommend to always have gloves to do your proper peak trips, especially at night. Hey guys, chapter 13, extreme driving conditions. Breakdowns and safety triangles. Always place your triangles within 15 minutes on the side of a road. If you are in a breakdown, you can be cited for not complying with the emergency hazard lights, so make sure they are also on. Freeing a stuck vehicle. There will be times, especially in the oil industry and muddy dirt locations, where you can possibly get stuck. The best thing you can do to try to get unstuck is to lock your interlock diffs. This is not a guarantee you will get unstuck, but it is your best chance, so try to avoid these roads or spots as much as possible. Runaway truck ramps. As you guys may or may not know, the I-70 accident that took place here in Colorado, it is very, very important to understand what runaway truck ramps are. They are a emergency runaway truck ramp, as just how they're called. Basically, if your brakes do not function, if there's brake fade, if there is a air leak, and you do not have brakes any longer, you will have to use these runaway truck ramps. They are made of some sort of sand to where it's going to slow down the weight and your whole CMB. Some of them are sloped up, some of them are level with the ground. Those are only to be used if absolutely needed. Operating in hot weather, every driver should be aware of heat strokes. Always be properly hydrated. Make sure your tractor's AC is working properly. And do not be afraid of telling your employers to fix these issues, such as AC not working or windows not rolling up and down. That's the end of this chapter. Any questions you may ask your trainer now? Chapter 14, Hazard Recognition. Road hazards. There are so many examples of road hazards, which we can't name every single example. There's many common ones, such as bicyclists, wildlife, rocks, and debris that we should be looking out for. We must understand equipment safety versus human safety. For example, you are driving on a mountain terrain in a 2-lane road when suddenly a deer runs into your lane too soon for you to stop. Rather than swerving into oncoming traffic, you decide to proceed with hitting the deer, sacrificing your equipment rather than other drivers. This will be an example of professional driving responsibility. Cyclist safety. In the test, be careful of not encroaching these lines as often. These are specifically for cyclists. Motorcyclist safety, be careful and be aware of motorcyclists, especially because the height comparison of the semi-truck compared to a motorcycle. They are very hard to detect since they tend to overpass at higher speeds. Do not tailgate, give them plenty of space. Pedestrian safety can be also very hard to detect due to objects in the way and common illegal crossings of an intersection. Do not ever assume pedestrians' actions and always be prepared if they do decide to cross. I recommend at every single intersection, look at if there is any pedestrians wanting to cross or crossing before you take a turn. Do not assume that they can see you, always be alert of them. That's the end of that chapter. If you have any questions, ask your trainer now. Chapter 15, Skid Control and Other Emergencies. Main causes of skids mostly happen during icy road conditions, but they could also be caused by improper driving techniques such as braking too hard, turning too sharply, accelerating too fast, and driving too fast for road conditions. As I mentioned on the previous slide, it is very important to avoid these driving techniques. Skidding with the trailer attached can be very hard to control and will most likely jackknife in harsh conditions. We will learn about skid recovery and how to recover.
Skidding occurs whenever the tires lose their grip on the road. In a skid, you cannot control the vehicle. Skids are caused by over-braking, oversteering, over-accelerating, or driving too fast. Driving too fast for road conditions is the cause of most serious skids. Always adjust your driving based on road conditions, giving yourself plenty of time and space to brake, accelerate, and turn. Drive wheel skids are the most common skid and cause the drive wheels to lose traction through over-braking or over-acceleration. To stop a drive wheel braking skid, stop braking to let the drive wheels roll freely. If the vehicle has started to skid sideways, this will straighten out the vehicle, but you will need to countersteer to prevent the vehicle from skidding the other way. Skids caused by acceleration typically happen in icy or snowy conditions and can be stopped by taking your foot off the accelerator. You may also need to push the clutch in to allow the wheels to roll freely. Front wheel skids are usually caused by driving too fast for road conditions, but they can also be caused by a lack of tread on the front tires or by improper loading that doesn't place enough weight on the front axle. In a front wheel skid, the vehicle doesn't respond to turning the wheel and instead tends to continue in a straight line. The only way to stop a front wheel skid is to let the vehicle slow down.
Just as he explained, that's how you recover from skids. Emergency evasive steering. You must always try to avoid this type of steering if possible, but if we must have to, you want to do the evasive steering, then you want to counter steer, then you want to straighten out. Once you are straight is then when you brake. You do not want to brake while you're doing this type of evasive steering to avoid an accident. Emergency braking, all we have to do is clutch all the way in, brake firmly, and hold the steering wheel with 2 hands. In an emergency braking scenario, we do not have time to downshift. This is exactly what you would do. Just clutch all the way in and brake. Most newer CMBs have an electronic emergency braking system, but do not rely on this system 100%, but instead take action by braking for your safety and others. Tire blowouts are most dangerous in the front axle. Basically, look at the condition of that tire. That's the reason why this tire blew out. So do not ever drive on these type of conditions of tires. But if this does happen, do not brake, but instead downshift and use your jake brakes to slow down. Try to grab the steering wheel with both hands. When it comes to tire blowouts or drive tire blowouts, it is much safer to control because you have other tires helping you. But they will sound like gunshots. They are very loud. This does happen. Pull over on the side of the road, set your emergency triangles and your hazard lights. Then you may call your service company or your dispatch or employer. And never operate on low tread or old tires. This is the end of this chapter. Any questions you may have, you can ask your trainer now. Chapter 16, Railroad and Highway Grade Crossings. In the test, we are not able to and we cannot shift through railroads. That will be considered an automatic fail if you look on your rules of the road sheet that we gave you as study tools. We do not have to stop before railroads. This would only be for school buses, commercial motor vehicles carrying passengers, and vehicles carrying flammable materials. So for the test, all we have to do is downshift a little bit. That way the vehicle doesn't feel like turning off. We turn ahead before the railroad. This is one thing that the examiners want to see. And we basically cross the whole railroad without shifting. Once we cross the trailer and the trailer exits, that's when we could start shifting again. We always want to be on the rightmost lane if possible. That way we are out of the way of other people, and we want to turn off any stereo or radio noise and lower windows if possible for better hearing. When it comes to railroad signs such as these that have stop signs, these are actually a mandatory that we have to stop, turn our head, make sure that no train is coming, then we could cross. Some are automatic arms that will come down and basically that will automatically stop you, but when it comes to stop sign ones, you technically have to stop, okay? That's the end of this chapter. If you have any questions, ask your trainer now. Chapter 17, Identification and Diagnosis of Malfunctions.
There are few things worse than seeing your check engine light turn on, or any other hazard light for that matter. Is it a major issue, or is it a minor fix? Today, Greg is going to cover some things you may notice happening to your truck that could be a sign that something is wrong. If you spot the warning signs in time, you may be able to avoid a major breakdown.
Turn over, or it's not turning over at all. Did the truck do this after sitting for 3 days without being started, or did it do it after a 10-hour reset? Log this information. It helps a lot and makes it easier to diagnose the problem. Second sign is your fluids are low. Check your fluids regularly. Check your oil every day, your coolant levels, see if it's gone down, see if you notice any trend of it using more or losing any. If you're regularly having to top off these fluids, you probably have a leak somewhere. If you notice a spot on the ground after you've parked, try to note that, where it's coming from. There's times the leaks could hit the ground and not show any sign on the engine at all. If you have an idea of where the leak is coming from, the shop will know a better way to start looking at. Third one, you lose engine power. Are you noticing that your truck just doesn't seem to have as much power as it used to? Or if you're noticing when you're accelerating, or you notice you may have a boost leak or a bad sensor. Loss of engine power means you could be in an engine derate situation also. This is an emissions issue. This means that your truck is operating in less than ideal conditions. The engine will cut it back on its output to preserve the engine life until you can get it into the shop. Again, keep good notes for the shops. They'll help you out. Fourth thing is your fuel economy has decreased. Your fuel economy could drop due to the weather, heavy loads, and the type of roads you're driving on. If it's a significant drop, like going from 7 miles a gallon to 5 miles a gallon, like overnight, it's time to get your truck checked out. You could have multiple issues causing this. Number 5, you can't get into gear. Are you hearing odd noises when switching gears? Especially if you hear unusual noises while in reverse, there's likely something wrong with your transmission. If you have a manual truck and can't get into gear, there could be a clutch adjustment issue, or the clutch brake may be malfunctioning. Number 6, your truck is shaking or vibrating. While shakes and vibrations will feel different, both are a sign of a larger problem. If your truck is shaking, it feels like you're driving over rumble strips for about 2 miles an hour. You'll feel a shake. The whole truck will move up and down, side to side, something like that. You'll feel the cab shaking up and down. A vibration feels like driving over rumble strips at 65 miles an hour. It's more of a buzz feel. If your truck is making these noises or pulling towards the ditch, you may have an issue with your steer tires. Shakes may be the result of a broken internal belt, or your air suspension has gone down for some reason. Number 7, you hear weird sounds. If you hear weird noises coming from your truck, like knocking or high-pitched whistles, let a shop know immediately. You may have a boost leak. You may have other issues going on. Get it checked out. Let the shops know under what conditions you're hearing it. Number 8, your exhaust stack turns black. Modern trucks should not emit any smoke from their stacks due to the DPF, the diesel particulate filter system. If you do see smoke, there's a problem. Check your stack regularly. If you have black soot in your exhaust stack, you could have a breached DPF on your hands, which can lead to bigger issues such as SCR, your DEF system issues, which will give you a derate.
Okay guys, as he just explained, overall drivetrain diagnosis. Frame diagnosis is mostly identified by visual search and will be noticeable while driving by shaking and odd noises and bad suspension bouncing. Axle diagnosis. 5 easiest ways to identify will be a tear in the boot, grease found on the inside of your wheels, knocking sound, clicking while turning sound, and vibration while driving. Exhaust system diagnosis. Your truck engine will be noisy, exhaust pipes are hanging or loose, reduction of power with increasing speed, smells of burning fuel, and you will burn and use more MPG and burn more fuel quickly. It is dangerous to smell carbon monoxide fumes for a long period of time, so make sure that's always fixed. 6 symptoms of failing brake systems are squeaking noise of the brakes, grinding noise from metal to metal contact on drum, vibrations, pulling from one side to the other while braking, soft braking power. We should always have strong braking power, air leakage and improper build of air pressure, and always inspect your brake shoe thickness for at least a 1/4 inch of material. This is the end of this chapter. If you have any questions, you can now ask your trainer. Chapter 18, Maintenance. What is your responsibility as a driver for maintenance? Although it is the owner's responsibility to fix and purchase any necessary products or services, it is your responsibility to do your proper pre-trip inspections. For example, you are doing your pre-trip and notice your coolant reservoir is leaking coolant. It is your responsibility to notify your employer and record this issue on the daily inspection report. And you have the responsibility to decide if the vehicle is safe to operate. Type of maintenance will be engine oil changes. Semi-truck engine oil changes are usually every 25,000 miles. You should keep a track of the miles you have operated in the CMV and notify your employer whenever you reach the 25,000 miles. Brake maintenance should be regularly replaced. Just maintain a watch on air pressure gauges and keep an eye on how well your brakes work. Grease maintenance, keep an eye on those fuel joints, pitman arms, etc. Make sure that the grease looks fairly new, that it doesn't look too old, and it should be greased every 12,000 miles. Make sure your fifth wheel plates are also properly greased. Tire maintenance, this is very important, especially in the front tires. You should always be letting your employers know if tires are looking worn out, so he or she can order new ones and install new ones on time, and also be in the lookout of unevenness in wear that would indicate some sort of alignment issue. And yes, the answer is yes, you can be fired for not inspecting your CMV properly. So make sure you're doing your proper pre-trips every single day to avoid getting fired with your employer. That is the end of this chapter. If you have any questions, ask your trainer now. Chapter 19, Documents and Insurance. What is a bill of lading? A bill of lading is a legal document issued by a carrier, which basically serves as proof that you either picked up a shipment or you dropped off a shipment. It is basically a receipt of the goods being delivered. Always keep this bill of lading safe and handy because your employer might need it, and your DOT officer can ask for it in a pullover situation. Insurance requirements. All CMVs must have commercial auto liability insurance and general liability insurance. Although it's your employer's responsibility to pay for insurance, you must verify and check that these documents are up to date and present, and at all times you have these documents. What to do if you're pulled over? If you're pulled over, you're gonna get out of the way. You're gonna park in a safe area, turn on your hazards, turn off your vehicle, pull out your CDL, your DOT physical, vehicle registration, and insurance. One important tip, do not remove your seatbelt until you physically see the officer and ask for permission to remove your seatbelt, or else you can be cited for a $90 ticket. And basically you will hand this information to him or her, and from then they will take care of the process. Your CMBs must have a DOT number, either an MC number or a DOT number registered at FMCSA. That is the end of this chapter. Any questions you may have, you can ask your trainer. Chapter 20, Hours of Service. We are almost complete with the ELDT. Hours of service is basically a regulation that the FMC has implied to where we have a certain amount of hour limits to work within a 24-hour period. That limit is 14 hours. When it comes to your logbooks, your employer should be training you on how to use the e-log that they're using, either paper form or electronic. They will take care as far as training on their end. But we must understand that there is a maximum of a 14-hour limit within any 24-hour period, that we can't overwork ourselves past that hour limit. Consequences of non-compliance will be a downgrade of the motor carrier safety rating, which will mean frequent checkups at scale houses and harder time with DOT and FMCSA checkups. This is the end of that chapter. Any questions you may have, you can ask now. Chapter 21, Post-Crash Procedures. We hope that this never does happen, but we must be prepared if it does. In a scenario of a crash, we must understand what to do. First, we need to prioritize safety. We always have our fire extinguisher with us. If we're able to save a human life, we focus on that very first. But at the same time, we contact professionals and contact 911. That way the ambulance or fire department can show up as soon as possible. 2 is that we contact authorities. We did that. Document the scene. Take photos and videos of what happened in the accident. 4 is that we exchange information by collecting the other person's insurance and license information, and you providing yours back to them. Then we can provide statements to law enforcement if it wasn't our fault and explain exactly what happened. If it was your fault, it is better to plead the fifth and let your attorney speak for you. And lastly is to inform your manager or dispatcher ASAP. If you're able to get out of the traffic's way and get the CMV out of the way to keep traffic going, you can also do that then. Vehicle fires, it is our responsibility as professionals to help to prevent dangerous fire fatalities. If saving equipment risks dangers for you and others, then you must get away from the danger and sacrifice equipment. Always carry your fire extinguisher at all times, either regular 10 BC or stronger extinguishers depending on the hazardous flammable material you carry. Human life is worth saving over equipment always. That's the end of that chapter. Chapter 22, Preparation and Fitness for Driving and Drugs and Alcohol. The drugs that they will be testing you for pre-employment and throughout your career will be marijuana, cocaine, opiates, opium and codeine derivatives, amphetamine and methamphetamines, and PCP. Basically, any drug that you can think of is already in the system, and we want to be staying away from these classes of drugs. Fitness for driving. We have already passed our DOT medical certificate. It's important to try to remain in good physical shape. This means to try to stay active and try to eat healthy food to maintain a good physique. Also, it's important to keep your corrective lenses up to date and present with you if you need corrective lenses. Try to avoid junk food. As a truck driver, it is very much known that over-the-road drivers have very minimal options for healthy foods. Typically, there will be refrigerators where you could bring your own foods and meal prep for your own healthy foods. That's the end of that chapter. We are 2 chapters left. Human sex trafficking and smuggling. Human sex trafficking is the illegal trade of humans for the purpose of forced labor, sexual slavery, or commercial sexual exploitation. In some cases, traffickers trick, defraud, or physically force victims into providing commercial sex, and other victims are lied to, assaulted, threatened, or manipulated into working under inhumane or illegal, otherwise unacceptable conditions. If we are involved in a cartel of human sex trafficking, we will start at 10 to 15 years in prison depending on the details of the crimes. In some states like Texas, you can face the death penalty. Some offenses, such as purchasing prostitution in truck stops, will result you in a mandate to register as a predatory offender and no more CDL license for you. What is human smuggling? It consists of assisting migrants to enter or stay into a country illegally for the financial or material gain. Smugglers make a profitable business out of migrants with the need or desire to enter a country with the lack of legal documents to do so. The consequences of being involved in a cartel of this nature, it is a serious federal offense. The crime can lead up to severe penalties, including 10 years in federal prison and no more CDL license for you ever. Truckers Against Trafficking, call 911 if you see any type of illegal smuggling or human trafficking suspicions. This is the end of this chapter. If you have any questions, ask your trainer. Last chapter, basic business practices. Applying for a job, it is important to always look professional and include our academy. We actually have to give verification if needed, and we will take care of that on our end if your employer is needing certification that you completed this program. There is a difference between getting paid W-2 and 1099. A W-2 tax form is basically where every paycheck that you have, a percentage is already being getting separated for taxes. So basically, at the end of the year, you're not so overwhelmed and have to pay all this financial burden for taxes. It is basically taking each check from you. As a 1099, it is an independent contractor, basically where you have to be collecting your own 30% every paycheck, which is more of a financial responsibility. That way, at the end of the year, you can pay off your tax bill. We recommend as a driver to work with a company getting you paid W-2. If you do decide to work as a 1099, please ask for a 9% more in income to compensate. Basically, whether you're getting paid W-2 or 1099, make sure that you're keeping track of your pay stubs and you know exactly how much you made to the dollar. That way, when your tax form comes back and they hand it to you, and let's say you made $80,000, and the tax form says that you made $85,000, those extra added $5,000 will be an unnecessary extra payment to the IRS. So always keep track of exactly how much you make. What do employers look for? In simple terms, employers look for hardworking, responsible drivers who are willing to learn and grow with the company. This means showing up every day for work and calling in sick and notifying employers on time before not showing up. Know your value in the marketplace. It's very important when it comes to the CDL and in the trucking industry to have the mentality that you are the prize and not the company. There is so much demand for new drivers. As older generations are retiring, it is your advantage to be taking and working with the best companies possible. Know your limits. Do not be afraid of telling your employers you can't overdo or overwork your schedule. Remember that you are a valuable asset. Most CDL jobs are 5-day shifts, depending on haul schedule and logistics. Congratulations on completing the classroom course. You have now completed the ELDT course.